So the hard part is done, which is to finally get to a point where both sides are in favor of something. But now Fiat has formally made the offer to Renault, and now Renault needs to pass it through its board and get the approval, but we don't see any signs that there's going to be any difficulty because, as we reported overnight with my colleagues around the world, this deal was stitched up in short order through a series of private meetings between John Elkann, the chairman of Fiat Chrysler, and the kind of scion of Italy's Agnelli family, which created Fiat in 1899, and Jean-Dominique Senard, who's parachuted in to run Renault in January and stabilized the company after Carlos Ghosn was arrested and who remains under house arrest in Tokyo. So this deal was really stitched up between these two men over a series of meetings which escalated in the final few weeks leading up to our story on Saturday, which I broke with my colleagues Peter Campbell and James Fontanella-Kahn and David Keohane around the world. And then they got the announcement out. But all the hard parts on getting the deal across the line, which has befuddled the industry for years. Sergio Marchionne, if you remember, has been trying to do a deal with GM, with Peugeot, before he passed away, and even had an approach from Carlos Ghosn at Renault before, which didn't go anywhere. Now John Elkann and Jean-Dominique Senard have got something on paper which is palatable to both sides. And now they must go and sell that to the various constituencies. And as you know, the auto industry is riven with rivalry. There's national pride. There's unions. So all these constituencies and antitrust authorities around the world will now try to stick a fork into it and see if there's a hole somewhere. So
and it's not
that is kind of where we are now.
It's not like here. I mean, if GM and Ford wanted to link up, they're just going to kind of do that. The governments are involved, too. I think France owns, what, 17% of Renault? So there's also a governmental approval aspect to any kind of a deal, is there not?
And the government, yes, the French government owns 15% of Renault. In the combined company, basically imagine that every existing shareholder will be cut in half because it's a 50-50 deal, so they'll own 7.5% of the new company. They've signaled they're open to the deal and seem happy. We reported last night that John Elkann went and met with President Macron to seek his assurances that everything, to give him reassurance that everything would be okay in the weeks leading up to this announcement. So the boxes have been ticked. Now various politicians will stick out their stick their nose into the wind and see if they can affect it. But it does seem like they have the state's support to do this.
Does this push Renault further away from Nissan? Would Nissan still be a part of this framework? Because the Carlos Ghosn aspect, I understand he's being charged with financial crimes or alleged financial crimes, but there is this school of thought, Arash, and I don't want you to go down that sort of internet wormhole, that Ghosn needed to be gone to get this deal done.
That's definitely our impression, and the TikTok of our story, which is sitting on FT.com right now, available for everyone to read, really charts a course where Ghosn's departure makes this a lot more palatable and possible. John Elkann had picked up the mantle and the playbook that Sergio Marchionne had left for him when he wrote Confessions of a Capital Junkie in 2015 and called for consolidation in the auto industry. And Elkann was trying extremely hard to get that done and stepped up into the role of deal maker. And then a more mild-mannered, less sort of imperious leader in Jean-Dominique Senard was brought in to run Renault. And with Ghosn gone and that massive personality out of the way, these two guys were able to hash something out in private and quite quietly. Now, and we have several quotes in our story saying that the irony of all this is that his departure made consolidation, something which all these gentlemen in the industry have been calling for, possible. Now, with respect to Nissan, as you know, Renault owns 43% of Nissan, and Nissan owns 15% of Renault. The catalyst for speeding up the talks between FCA and Renault was, in fact, the fact that Renault had failed to get Nissan to the table to bring those two companies together further in a merger. And once Senard made that clear to Elkann, that's when Elkann seized the opportunity to say, hey, well, let's just do it between us, and the Japanese are going to have to wait. We have a quote in our story from someone close to Renault saying that the behavior of the Japanese in the last few months has been completely irrational, which was a knock straight at the CEO of Nissan. So it's safe to say relations between the French and the Japanese remain extremely rocky.